For centuries, the stars themselves bore scars of a war that had no end. A war fought not against empires, not against armies, but against gods of the void. They were called Leviathans, living titans, forged of flesh, metal, and nightmares. Creatures so vast they could eclipse entire moons with their wings. The galaxy had thrown everything at them: plasma cannons, antimatter warheads, fleets the size of continents. And yet, the Leviathans endured. Generations of warriors had risen, fought, and died, only for their children to inherit the same battle. To be born in this galaxy was to be born into war. Not one victory had ever been claimed, only survival. Picture this: an alien armada of 1,000 ships unleashing firepower so bright it looked like a second sun had erupted in space. Their weapons tore through the void, slamming into a Leviathan's plated hide, and simply bouncing off. The creature responded with a soundless roar, sending a shockwave of energy that shattered half the fleet in a single pulse. A planet burned below, oceans boiling as the beast's shadow passed overhead. Cities vanished in moments, and above them, fleets fought to delay the inevitable. This was life in the galaxy, every system knowing one day the sky would crack open and the Leviathans would come. The alien species fought together, uniting armadas, pooling technology, sharing blood and loss. But no matter how many ships they built, no matter how many soldiers they sent to die, the war always ended the same way, with wreckage drifting in orbit, and the Leviathans still alive. Some called them divine punishment. Others believed they were simply nature's way of reminding civilizations of their fragility. Whatever the theory, one truth remained: they could not be killed. So the galaxy adjusted. The Leviathans became something more than enemies. They became inevitability. Entire cultures revolved around preparing for their return. Monuments weren't built for victories, they were built for massacres. Survived. Imagine entire planets with walls made not to keep invaders out, but to delay their doom long enough for the young to escape. Imagine soldiers who fought not to win, but to buy time. Victory wasn't even in the vocabulary anymore. Only survival. In time, something far worse happened than the deaths, worse than the destruction. The galaxy learned to accept it. Children grew up knowing they would die fighting the same war their ancestors had. Commanders planned battles not with strategies to win, but with strategies to minimize how many names would be etched on the next wall of remembrance. The Leviathans had become eternal, and in that eternity, the galaxy had forgotten hope. But what if I told you that all of this, the centuries of bloodshed, the endless fleets, the despair that had infected every world, would all be undone in days? That while alien civilizations had struggled for generations against an impossible foe, one man from a forgotten world would look upon the same monster and smile, because to him, it wasn't a god, it wasn't invincible, it was just a problem waiting to be solved. The Galactic Council was no place for the weak. Its chamber was a cathedral of power, its walls etched with the names of billions who had fallen in the Leviathan wars, its air thick with the weight of despair. Here, towering generals and envoys argued endlessly, voices echoing through the vast hall. Reptilian warlords slammed clawed fists on stone tables. Crystalline diplomats pulsed with bitter light. All demanded answers, but none had any to give. For centuries, they had tried everything, and still, the Leviathans ruled the void. But then someone new entered the chamber, someone no one had expected. The doors opened, and in walked a delegation so small, most assumed they were servants. Humans. They looked fragile compared to the towering reptilians and the hulking insectoid commanders. No shimmering crystalline skin, no wings, no fangs, just flesh and bone wrapped in simple uniforms. At their head was one man, Captain Elias. His boots echoed across the marble floor as thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. Some sneered, some laughed, others looked confused, whispering in disbelief. A forgotten world had sent its soldier to the Council of Survivors, Earth. One delegate scoffed, voice dripping with contempt. The forgotten backwater. You bring primitives here to face gods. Another alien leaned forward, mandibles clicking. Have you come to die in the void like the rest of us? Or is this comedy? The chamber erupted with laughter, bitter, exhausted laughter from species that had already buried too many. To them, this human was nothing but a distraction from despair. But Elias didn't flinch. He let the laughter pass, his eyes steady, his hands folded calmly behind his back. When silence finally returned, he spoke. Show me the one that killed it. The chamber went silent again. What did you say? A general hissed. Elias's voice was calm, steady. Show me the Leviathan you fought for centuries, the one you call invincible. Show me where it bleeds. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some delegates whispered in disbelief, others snarled in outrage. To them, it wasn't just arrogance, it was heresy. They didn't just fight Leviathans, they worshipped their inevitability. To claim one could bleed was madness. You don't understand, a crystalline envoy hissed, her body flickering with trembling light. We have tried everything, armies, weapons, even suicide fleets. The Leviathan endures. Elias simply tilted his head, as though hearing a child insist the sun would never rise. You've been fighting it like prey, he said softly, waiting for it to strike, hiding from its shadow. You've already decided it cannot be killed. That is why you've failed. For a long moment, no one spoke. The chamber echoed with the weight of those words. A warlord rose, his scales glinting, under the light. And you, human, what would you do differently? Elias smiled faintly. I wouldn't worship it. The chamber erupted against shouts, outrage, disbelief. Some called for his removal. Others whispered uneasily, remembering how long it had been since anyone had spoken the words victory and Leviathan in the same breath. And yet, something dangerous stirred among them, something forgotten, something they hadn't dared to feel in centuries. Hope. The galaxy called it eternal, a god of destruction, unkillable, unstoppable. For 400 years, entire fleets had hurled themselves against it, and all had perished. Now, a single human stood before its image for the first time, and instead of fear, he smiled. The chamber darkened as a holoprojector flickered to life. Slowly, the Leviathan appeared, suspended in blue light. It was colossal, dwarfing any warship. Its body was a living cathedral of bone and steel, scales glistening like black crystal. Veins of molten plasma pulsed beneath its hide, glowing with an eerie heartbeat. Wings of shattered metal stretched, wider than cities. Its eyes burned like miniature suns, cold and merciless. Alien delegates shuddered at the sight, some lowering their gazes, others clutching at charms or tokens of their faith. For them, this was no simple enemy. It was the nightmare of their ancestors, the monster that haunted every lullaby. But Elias Vey only leaned closer, studying, measuring. Behold, the Endbringer, a reptilian general hissed, voice heavy with reverence and hate. We named it Karzel. It has killed 1 billion souls. It is the unkillable. Another delegate, crystalline and trembling, added, we have tracked it for centuries. It drifts through systems, destroying worlds. Nothing penetrates its armor. We cannot harm it. We can only endure. The chamber fell quiet, waiting for the human to flinch, to bow, to share in their despair. Where's the scar? The delegates froze. The scar, the crystalline envoy repeated. Elias gestured toward the hologram. You've fought it for 4 centuries. Ships, weapons, fleets, thousands of battles. Show me the scar. Show me the wound it carries from all that time. They hesitated. Number 1 spoke, because there was none. Elias stepped closer, eyes locked on the monstrous projection. That's your problem. You've thrown everything at it, hoping something would stick. Hoping, but hope isn't a strategy. You kept fighting like prey scattering when it roared, striking when it let you. He pointed toward the beast's glowing veins. Every system, every action was designed to survive it, not to kill it. You worshipped its strength instead of questioning its weakness. The word struck the chamber like a blade. For the first time in generations, someone wasn't just cowering before the Leviathan. He was challenging it. The projection shifted to battlefield recordings. The Leviathan erupting from a gas giant's storms, tearing through fleets like insects, beams of antimatter exploding against its hide, doing nothing but lighting its scales with ghostly fire. It opened its maw, and a shockwave rippled outward, shattering warships like glass. Entire flotillas vanished in seconds. The chamber filled with silence again. Many alien eyes glistened with tears of rage, shame, and helplessness. "Do you understand now, human?" One warlord growled. "This is not a beast. It is eternity." But Elias only shook his head, calm and unyielding. "No, it's just biology wrapped in arrogance. And arrogance always has a weak spot." He turned to face the council, his gaze steady. "You've been asking the wrong question for 4 centuries. How do we survive it?" He let the silence stretch, then spoke the words that changed the air. "In the chamber, I'm asking a different one. How do we end it?" The delegates recoiled as though struck. Some shouted in fury. Others whispered in trembling disbelief. And some, just a few, felt something dangerous stir inside their chests. Hope. The galaxy believed it would take 1,000 fleets to kill a Leviathan. The human brought only 1 ship. Alien admirals gathered in orbit above a burned-out star, staring at the human vessel docked among their colossal warships. Compared to their armadas, the corvette was laughable, smaller than a cruiser's gun battery, little more than a blade of steel drifting among giants. Its crew was tiny, a few dozen volunteers. No exotic technology, no divine weaponry, just humans, moving with grim focus, checking systems, calibrating engines. To the galaxy, it looked like suicide. To Dayshfy, it was precision. Madness. Spot a reptilian general slamming a clawed fist on the war table. "You cannot pierce its armor with that toy." An insectoid admiral clicked his mandibles in disgust. "We have hurled suns at the beast, and you think a corvette will end it? You've been fighting with brute force for centuries. You throw rocks at a mountain and wonder why it doesn't fall. But mountains don't fall because you scream at them. They fall because you find the fault line." The chamber fell silent. "What fault line?" a crystalline envoy whispered. Elias pointed toward the star, "The one you've been ignoring. You keep focusing on the beast. I'm focusing on its hunger." Charts and projections flickered into view, showing orbital mechanics, gravitational wells, and energy outputs. Elias walked the alien commanders through his plan with unnerving calm. He would use the dying star itself, time his ship's orbit so precisely that it would slingshot through plasma storms and radiation belts, diving closer to the Leviathan than any alien dared. He would ride the star's death throes like a wave straight into the beast's exposed veins. "And when we're inside," Elias finished, "we'll overload its own core. It carries a heart of plasma. You've been shooting at its skin for 400 years. I intend to make it kill itself from within." The aliens stared at him, silent. Some trembled, some snarled. One finally spat the words everyone was thinking. "That isn't strategy. That's suicide." Ilias's gaze hardened. "Every battle you've fought has been suicide. Throwing fleets at it. Sending generations to die. At least this suicide has an end." The words silenced the chamber. It was madness, insanity, but there was something terrifying in the human's calm. He spoke not like a man gambling with lives, but like a man who already knew he had one. The human corvette undocked, its engines flaring as it pulled away from the massive fleets. From the bridge windows of alien dreadnoughts, soldiers watched in disbelief. One insectoid whispered to another, "They will not last an hour." The corvette accelerated toward the dying star, vanishing into storms of fire and lightning, its hull glowing red against the fury of a collapsing sun. Every alien ship remained behind, unwilling to follow. Armadas that had fought for centuries, waiting in silence, watching this fragile vessel sail into the maw of death. As the corvette disappeared into the plasma storms, Elias's final words echoed across the coms. "You've been surviving for centuries. I'm not here to survive. I'm here to finish it." The transmission cut. The fleets held their breath, for the first time in living memory. The galaxy was not watching another slaughter. They were watching a possibility. For 4 centuries, the galaxy had watched Leviathans devour fleets. Now, for the first time, the galaxy watched in silence, as one fragile human ship dove alone into the maw of eternity. The dying star blazed like a furnace, plasma storms curling around it in fiery arcs. The Leviathan hung in orbit, vast and monstrous, its wings spread across the void like the shadow of a god. Its glowing veins pulsed with life, each throb a silent drumbeat of power. From behind distant lines, alien fleets observed. Hundreds of species, thousands of warships, silent witnesses to what they believed was another suicide. Then the human corvette appeared, a streak of metal cutting across solar fire, weaving through arcs of magnetic lightning. Its hull glowed, white-hot, as it slingshotted around the collapsing star. Inside the beast's territory, on the corvette's bridge, Captain Elias Vey gripped the console as alarms wailed. The ship shook violently, plasma waves battering its shields. His crew sweat-soaked, terrified, but unyielding followed his orders with precision. "Angle 10 degrees. Boost on my mark." The ship twisted sharply, grazing the edge of a plasma geyser, riding its eruption like a surfer catching a wave. The crew clung to their harnesses as the vessel screamed toward the Leviathan's chest. Outside, the monster stirred. Its eyes, brighter than suns, shifted toward the intruder. It opened its maw, releasing a shockwave that shattered space itself. The corvette plummeted straight into it. The Leviathan's attack hit the ship, head-on shields flared. Metal warped, but the corvette did not shatter. It pierced at, shot past wings the size of continents, engines burning brighter than belief, and drove itself into a glowing seam of the Leviathan's armored hide where molten veins pulsed beneath its skin. The ship vanished inside. The galaxy gasped. Inside the monster, the corvette raced through cavernous arteries of burning plasma. Walls of living metal flexed and convulsed around them, trying to crush the intruder. "Core ahead," shouted a crewman. Ilias's eyes locked on the reading's energy, so dense it could tear a star apart. The Leviathan's heart. "Prepare the overload," Elias ordered. The crew worked with frantic precision, rerouting every ounce of the ship's reactor into the warhead. Sparks rained from consoles. Alarms shrieked. The hull groaned as if the ship itself knew it wouldn't be leaving. "Alive. And then come." Elias's voice cut through the chaos. "Humanity doesn't bow to monsters. Fire." The warhead launched, embedding itself deep within the Leviathan's core. For the first time in history, the Leviathan screamed. A shockwave erupted from within, its body convulsing, its glowing veins rupturing like shattered glass. Plasma geysers tore through its flesh, erupting outward in cataclysmic bursts. The monster writhed, wings thrashing, claws raking empty space, as if trying to tear the pain out of itself. Every fleet watching, every soldier who had ever fought and bled in vain, stared as the unkillable god of the void burned from within, and then, in one blinding flash, its heart imploded. The Leviathan's colossal body went limp, drifting silently through the storm of the dying star. Dead silence across the galaxy. Silence. Alien admirals, warriors, civilians, watching from worlds far away, all frozen, unable to process what they had just seen. For centuries of failure, billions dead, Armies shattered, and now, one human corvette had ended it. For 400 years, the galaxy had only known one story: Leviathans arrive, fleets burn, and worlds fall. Now, for the first time in history, the story was different. A Leviathan was dead. The void still shimmered with the aftershocks of the explosion. The beast's colossal body drifted lifelessly, wings folded like broken monuments. Its glowing veins extinguished into cold darkness. Alien fleets circled at a distance, silent and motionless. Thousands of eyes stared through bridge windows, scanners, and holofeeds, as if afraid the monster would suddenly move again. It didn't. The unkillable was killed, across the bridge of a crystalline dreadnought. The commander stood frozen, her fractal body trembling. It is gone, she whispered, voice breaking. On a reptilian warship, a general slammed his claws against the deck, his roar echoing through the halls. Not rage, not despair, something far more dangerous. Relief insectoid. Crews chittered and wailed in disbelief, some collapsing to their knees. Others wept openly. Whole armies stood silent, soldiers staring at the impossible sight with wide, glassy eyes. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw not inevitability, but hope. On distant worlds, transmissions spread like wildfire. Children in underground shelters stared at the broadcasts in awe. Entire cities gathered in silence around projection screens, watching the impossible. The corpse of a Leviathan, drifting. Priests fell to their knees, temples ringing with cries of joy. Elders who had buried generations of kin wept, clutching at the sky. And yet, alongside the joy came something else, fear. Because if it was possible to kill one, what did that mean for the rest? The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Voices rose in disbelief, anger, confusion. It cannot be real. One delegate hissed. Perhaps it was only weakened. Another insisted. Or perhaps, a crystalline envoy whispered, we never truly fought it at all. Perhaps we only fed it, until the humans showed us how to starve it. Every voice fell quiet at the center of the chamber. Elias Vey stood with the calm of a man who had already accepted what the galaxy could not. It was never invincible. You only believed it was. The words cut deeper than any blade, because they were true. For centuries, the galaxy had lived as prey. They had worshipped fear, bowing to inevitability. Now, one human had shattered the illusion, and illusions, once broken, could never be rebuilt. In the silence that followed, a whisper began to spread through the chamber. A whisper that moved like wildfire through soldiers, civilians, leaders, and empires alike. If humans can kill Leviathans, what else can they do? The thought spread faster than the news of the Leviathan's death. It lingered in the back of every mind, turning awe into unease, gratitude into suspicion. The galaxy held its breath because it realized something terrifying. Perhaps, the Leviathans had never been the greatest threat at all. The Leviathan's corpse still floated in the void, a monument to the impossible. But while one fear died that day, another was born. The Galactic Council chamber was darker than before. Its torches and hololights dimmed, as if the room itself feared what was being spoken. Delegates sat in tense silence. Their eyes no longer stared at the hologram of the dead Leviathan. They stared at the human who had killed it. Captain Elias Vey stood calm in the center of the chamber. But the air around him was heavy, poisonous with suspicion. A crystalline, envoy's voice broke the silence first, sharp and brittle. If they can end what we could not in 4 centuries, what else might they end? Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A reptilian warlord growled, his tail lashing the floor. We've bled billions into this war. Then, a human arrives, and days later, the beast is dead. Tell me, is this coincidence, or did they know something we did not? Others joined in, their voices rising. Perhaps Earth studied the Leviathans, in secret. Perhaps humanity waited until we were weak, then revealed their weapon. Perhaps they do not save us. Perhaps they prepare to rule us. Across the fleets, the same whispers spread. Alien soldiers, once awed by human courage, now looked at human faces with unease. Civilians on distant worlds asked the same question. If they can do this to the Leviathans, what chance do we have against them? In shadowed war rooms, admirals repositioned fleets, not against the Leviathans, but subtly against human territories. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy looked away from the monsters beyond the rim and turned its gaze inward, at Earth, through it all. Elias stood, unwavering. "You asked for allies," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "We came, we fought, we ended the thing you feared most, and yet you look at me as though I'm the danger." His words fell into silence. No one could meet his eyes, because in truth, many feared exactly that. It was one thing to fight alongside a species that shared in failure. It was another to fight alongside one that could end in days. What? You could not in centuries. Humanity had done the impossible, and the impossible is frightening. One insectoid admiral finally said aloud what the others only thought. If they can kill gods, what hope have mortals? The words hung in the air like a toxin. Delegates shifted uneasily. Some nodded, others lowered their gazes in shame. None spoke in humanity's defense. Elias exhaled slowly, as if he had expected nothing less. The council adjourned, but the whisper followed every delegate out of the chamber. It followed them into their fleets, into their homes, into their hearts. If the humans can kill Leviathans, what if one day they decide to kill us? The thought spread faster than hope ever had, and so the galaxy that had begged for salvation began to plant quietly, secretly for the day it might need to be saved from its saviors. The Leviathan was dead, but peace did not follow, for in the silence after the monster's fall, the galaxy found a new terror, humanity itself. In the shadow of the Leviathan's drifting corpse, fleets assembled, not against the void beyond the rim, but against the pale blue sphere of Earth. Whispers had hardened into resolve. Entire armadas quietly shifted course, not in open declaration, but in silence like predators circling prey. If humanity can slay the unkillable, they cannot be trusted to remain free. Ilias Vey knew it before the reports reached him. He saw it in the stares of alien envoys, in the careful words of their speeches, in the sudden absence of warmth where once there had been awe. The galaxy had turned, but he did not panic. He did not plead. He gathered his officers aboard the battered corvette, still scarred from its plunge into the Leviathan's heart. "They see us as monsters now," one of his lieutenants muttered bitterly. "No," Elias said calmly. "They see us for what we are, not monsters, survivors, builders, fighters. They fear us because we remind them what they're not." When the council demanded his presence again, Elias went willingly. He stood once more in the center of that darkened chamber, a single human, surrounded by hundreds of species, each eye upon him sharp with suspicion. The crystalline envoy was the first to break the silence. "We thank you for the Leviathan's death, but your kind cannot be allowed to rise unchecked. Your strength is too great, your will too dangerous." A murmur of agreement swept the chamber. Elias's answer was quiet, but it struck like thunder. "You fear us because we finished in days what you could not in centuries. But you misunderstand. It is not strength that set us apart. It is will. Where you saw gods, we saw prey. Where you saw eternity, we saw a challenge." He let the silence stretch, eyes locking with the delegates one by one. "You think this makes us dangerous? You're right, but it also makes us necessary." A reptilian warlord snarled. "Necessary? You claim the galaxy needs you." Ilias's voice sharpened. "The Leviathan is dead. Do you think it was the only one? No. Out beyond your maps, in the black you've never dared to look into, More of them stir, maybe larger, maybe older, and when they come, what will you do? Wait another for centuries to fail? The chamber fell utterly silent. Elias leaned forward, his words a blade. You fear us because we showed you the truth. Nothing is invincible. But remember this, when the next shadow rises, you will pray humanity is still here, because if not, you'll all burn. The delegates said nothing. They could not. His words were not threats. They were prophecy, the homage of the Leviathans. Corpse lingered above them, silent proof. Humanity had done what the galaxy had deemed impossible, and whether they loved it or hated it, they knew. Elias Vey was right.